So today we have got a super special guest with us. This is Echo Bodine. I don't know anybody as phenomenal in her field as Echo. In my opinion, I think you are the best psychic I know, Echo. And it's an absolute honor and privilege to have you on my YouTube channel today. And so, for those of you that don't know, Echo is a psychic medium, clairvoyant. You've written several books. I actually have one of them right here.
Yay.
And,
Oh, yay.
and you've been on numerous talk shows, radio shows. I mean, you've done it all, haven't you, Echo?
I have, honey. I have. Yep.
So, would you like to give us a little bit of background for those of you out there that possibly don't know who Echo is? Echo, would you like to
Sure, honey. Sure. Yeah. Um, honey, so I grew up just like everybody else in a normal dysfunctional family, okay? And we didn't, honey, there was really no talk about psychic stuff or we were Presbyterian, for goodness sakes. We didn't talk about things like reincarnation and astral projection. And we had I was 17 years old, and we had a very unusual experience in my family where um, every night after dinner, one of my brothers would go downstairs and practice on his drum set. He was just learning how to play the drums. And he sounded, pretty rough. He was in the beginning stages. So he was kind of, clanking away. And all of a sudden, there was this really nice drumming music coming from the den. And we all stopped talking and looked at our dad as if he would know what was going on. And he said, I don't know, it must be the record I bought him. And so we just sat there listening to this really nice drumming music. And not long after, my brother came flying up the stairs and said, Did you hear it? Did you hear it? Did you hear it? And we said, Yeah, what was it? And he said, a white figure floated through the door across the room, put his hands on top of my brother's hands, and played the music. And my brother said he tried to drop his sticks. Um, he said he had his eyes closed and he could still see the guy. And he said, and then the guy played for, like, I don't know, honey, it was maybe only just even a half a minute. And he said, then the guy just backed up across the room and went right through the door. And we, we're like, what? And so my mom was in a prayer group at the time. And one of the women had mentioned to her that she had been to a psychic. Because, I mean, back in 1965, honey, nobody, I mean, psychics were not on every corner like they are now, right? I mean, you had to know somebody who knew somebody in order to find a psychic. So,
circle, tight group?
yeah. So, mom called her friend and said, okay, we just had a really weird experience. And can I have the number of that psychic? And my mom called the psychic. Her name was Mrs. Olson. She was from England. She had the best accent. And she said, Mrs. Olson, my name is May Bodine. And Mrs. Olson said, yes, Mrs. Bodine, I've been expecting your phone call. And she said, your son just met his guardian angel, Dr. Fitzgerald.
Wow.
And in one of his lifetimes, he was a drummer, and he is going to teach your son how to play the drums. And she said, this happened for a reason. I need to see you and your oldest daughter for a psychic reading. And my mom said, okay, I'll get back to you on that, and hung up the phone. And she and I were so curious. Why does she want to see us? Who is this woman? What is going on? And none of us were comforted by the fact that my brother had a guardian angel who played the drums. What? I mean, honey, this was so new to us. It was just like somebody just spoke French. We didn't understand any of it. And so we called her back the next day because we were so curious. And And Mom and I went and had a reading with her. Mom was told that she would be a well-known psychic someday, and that my baby brother Michael would be a well-known psychic, and that my sister Nikki would come into her abilities when she was in her mid-40s, and that my other brother, the drummer, had psychic abilities but would not use them. Okay, then I went in. Oh my God. And she told me, honey, I got to tell you, it was such a funny story. She had a glass of water sitting on this table next to her. And I went to drink the water because I was so nervous. And she said, "Oh, no, dearie, don't drink the water. That's for the spirits." And so I thought, oh my God, spirits are going to drink water. Oh God, I can't take this. Okay. And then she proceeded to tell me that I was born with all 4 of the psychic abilities, and that I was born with the gift of healing, and that I would be a well-known psychic, and I would be known throughout the world, and I would write books and be on radio and TV. And I'm looking at this lady. I'm a senior in high school. I'm like, what? I said, first of all, I don't have any of this stuff. And secondly, I don't want any of this stuff. I just want to have a nice, normal life. And she said, you can do that in your next life. And so as she proceeded to give me more information, I sat there the whole time watching that glass of water because I wanted to see it go down. And it never went down. And so afterwards, I said to her, what did you mean about the water? And she said, oh, spirits get energy from the water. They don't drink it. They get energy from it. And I was, both Mom and I, our life completely changed that night. I can't even tell you. It was the most bizarre thing ever. And then she said, your father's at home with a migraine headache, which he was. And she said, Echo, there's 2 things I'm supposed to tell you about the gift of healing. 1, always use white hankies underneath your hands when you're channeling healing. And 2, don't ever forget that it's God that heals people. You're just God's channel. Mm-hmm. She says, your father's at home with a migraine headache, which he was. And she said, go home, put some hankies on his head, put your hands on top of it, the hankies. And she said, and ask God to work through you. And she said, the rest you'll have to learn on your own. And she said, as far as your psychic abilities, there will be a teacher coming along soon who will teach you and your mother how to develop your abilities. And so, excuse me. So, the whole way home, Mom and I were saying to each other, why us? Why do we have to do this weird stuff? Why we don't have any of this stuff. And when we got home, I told my dad, and I put some hankies on his head. And honest to God, honey, and my mom was standing right next to me, like watching everything. And so I put my hands on his head, and my hands started to tremble, and they heated up like little heating pads. And I thought, oh my God, what is this? And then after about, I don't know, honey, could have been 20 seconds, they cooled off all by themselves. And my dad said, well, I'll be damned if my headache isn't gone. So that night, you should see me. Okay, so I'm laying in bed. I can't sleep. I'm thinking, okay, there was Jesus Christ, and there was Oral Roberts, and the healer, and me. And so now I have to travel around the world and heal all the sick people. And I better get some robes. I think they always wear robes. And I better stop swearing. And what else should I do? I was trying to figure it all out.
Fitting into the theme of being a healer.
Exactly. And got up the next morning and went back to school, and everything was so real. Just like like I always say, my mom and I, we didn't know what to do. So we thought, okay, well, we better go buy incense because psychics always have incense. And honey, I swear we bought $100 worth of incense. I mean, and then it was like, okay, well, here we are. We got our incense. We're ready to rock and roll. And that,
Back in
and
those days, you wouldn't have had that support system like you have these days, because it seems like every second person is a psychic. And I mean, everybody has psychic energy, that's for sure.
yeah,
But,
yeah,
you know, like now the whole world is absolutely saturated with metaphysical inclined people.
yeah, yeah.
And people don't know really, you know, who to turn to anymore now. Who's authentic? Who's in it for the money? You know, who's in it for the fame and fortune? Because you have the whole circle now, and that's
I
really
know.
kind of how it is.
I
Isn't
know, honey. It's everywhere. It's everywhere. Yeah.
it? So back then you really had to learn how to integrate this into your own life, and I know you had some challenges along the way, didn't you?
Yes. But Mrs. Olson was right. We did a woman called us and introduced herself. She's a spiritualist minister here in Minnesota. And she said that her spirit guides gave her our names and told her to teach us. And, you know, Mom and I, oh my God, I was like, Mom, I'm so freaked out by this stuff. Honey, I was sleeping every night with the lights on because I was afraid, well, what if I have a spirit guide that wants to talk to me? You know, I was just, I was just on edge all the time, wondering what all this meant. And we, Mom said, well, let's just go one time and see what it's like. And we got to this lady's house, and there were 6 other people there, just like us. We're all saying, I don't know, she called us and said that we're supposed to come to her house. And they were just regular people like us. You know, they didn't, I don't know, they didn't look like we thought they would look like. Just, yeah, honey, normal people. And we ended up going every week. And, you know, honey, once she described what psychic abilities were, I thought, oh, yeah, well, yeah, I do that. I mean, I get pictures in my head and then they come true. Or, I mean, I remember being in 2nd grade and knowing who was going to be sick the next day. I just knew stuff. But, you know, I really think that I thought everybody did these things and everybody got these visions in their mind that later came true. So I never really labeled it or even thought much about it. And when she described clairvoyance, the gift of seeing, or clairaudience, the gift of hearing, clairsentience, the gift of sensing, and she didn't talk about clairgustance, but I later learned that clairgustance is the gift of psychic smell. So when she was describing all this, I thought, oh my gosh, I do have that, and I do have that. But it was random. I didn't know how to turn it on and turn it off. And that's a lot of what I had to learn, was how to control it. You know, shut it off when you go out to the grocery store, turn it on when, you know, you've got a client in front of you, that kind of thing. Yeah. So there was a lot to learn, honey, a lot.
So anyway, like as you said about learning how to shut off this psychic energy, I know you mentioned wearing a mirror to let the energy out is something that a lot of people could possibly use these days, because
yes, honey. Birdie, that was our teacher. Birdie told us women to wear mirrors in our bras facing out. She said that will reflect negative energy away from you. And I thought, that sounds awful. And so I didn't do it, of course. And several years later, I walked into a store, and there was a mirror necklace, a really pretty necklace that had a mirror on it. And I thought, oh my God, I wonder. And I bought it right away and put it on. And honey, I actually could tell a difference. I suddenly didn't feel everything around me, but it was just like a breath of fresh air to
So
just
really,
put this necklace on. And honey, even there were times I'd wear it underneath my shirt just because I didn't want people to ask me why I wear a necklace with a mirror on it. And it was just as effective then too. Yeah. So there's a lady here in the Twin Cities that makes the mirror necklaces for me now so that people can go online and order one for themselves. Yeah. And I can give you
please
her
pass the
info.
link on, because there would be a lot of people very
Yeah.
interested in that, because a lot of people know, even if, and it's not even that people, let's just say you're in a crowd, it's not like people even intend to suck the energy away from you,
Yep.
or
Yep.
it's almost if you are, it's a bit like a weather pattern in the sky. If there is a sink in pressure, it's automatically the clouds are going to be sucked down into that kind of,
Yeah.
and it balances out. So it's kind of like
Yeah.
that if someone's sick or is having negative thoughts or is not feeling good about themselves, they are naturally going to, take, even inadvertently, somebody's energy that's,
Right.
high vibing and feeling good. And so I
Yep.
think
Yep.
I know myself that it's very hard for me to be in large crowds, because when I get back home, I'm absolutely exhausted, even if it's
Yeah, I know. Yeah, honey. Yep. I get it. I get it. I know. Yeah.
so. So I thought if we could talk about some of the mediumship abilities that you've learned over time. Obviously, you've had it naturally, but as Birdie has said to you, you needing to develop these on your own and finding your own
Yeah.
feet. Tell us about your experience with ghosts and the other side, and helping ghosts, so not spirits, because there is actually a difference, isn't there, Echo?
Yes, there is, honey.
Ghost
Yes.
spirits. So if you'd like to just talk to us about
Okay.
the earthbound ghosts that are here on the planet and how you help facilitate them to the other side.
Okay, honey. Well, first of all, honey, the first ghostbusting job I ever went on, which wasn't called ghostbusting back then, it was just going to somebody's attic and seeing what's in there. And we went up, my mom and I went up to this lady's attic, and um, okay, so I grew up on Casper. All right, Casper, the little friendly ghost, the little blobby white thing. Okay, that was what I thought a ghost would look like. So we go up to this lady's attic, and I can see over in the corner there's a man and a woman and a boy and a girl, but they're invisible. Because I asked the homeowner, can you see those people over there in the corner? No. Oh, okay. And I looked at my mom, and she was looking at the corner too. And I said, can you see them? And she goes, yeah. And I said, well, why are they here? And she said, I don't know. Well, okay. So I didn't connect that they were ghosts. I'm still looking for little Casper, little blobby white thing to come floating through the room. And so again, I'm constantly drawn over to these four people in the corner. And again, I'm thinking to my mom, why are they there? Then into my head comes the words, my husband was an alcoholic and a smoker, and he passed out and we all perished in the fire. And he won't let us go to the other side because he's afraid he's going to get sent to hell. So that whole thing came into my head. And I looked at my mom and I said, did you? And she goes, uh-huh. So she heard it too, right? Honey, we didn't know what to do with people. We hadn't gotten to Ghosts 101 in class yet. And so again, I'm looking for Casper. Okay, well, we don't find any ghosts here, but there's people here. And so we just said to them, well, you need to go. You need to leave. And so, honey, they went through the wall. Okay, well, and we told Carol, the homeowner, well, we didn't find any ghosts, but there were some people there, and they're gone. Okay, so by the time we got home, Carol called and said, well, all the noise is back again. So Mom and I said, okay, until we know what the heck we're doing, we're not going to do that anymore. And honey, I don't even know how much longer it was between that and when the pieces started to come together in my brain that, wait a minute, I think these people are the ghosts. Um, and at that point, I called my baby brother, Michael. God, he's a good psychic. And I said, bro, can you see spirits? And he said, yeah. And I said, well, do they scare you? And he goes, no. I said, okay, cool. I said, one of my students says her house is haunted. It's been on the market for a year and it's not selling. And she wants to know if I'll come and look. Will you go with me? Because, well, I'm just kind of nervous. I don't know what to do. So he said, okay, yeah, let's go. So we went to her house. Oh my God, that house was crawling with ghosts. They were in every room. And what was cool about going with my brother was that, you know, I would look over and maybe I'd see a woman in a red dress in the corner. And I'd look at him and say, do you see anything in here? And he'd say, yeah, there's a lady in the red dress over in the corner. It was really good because we validated each other, what each other saw. And we knew that we weren't making it up, which was really cool. And then we asked our spirit guides, because by that time, honey, we had developed a good relationship with our spirit guides. And we said to them, what do we do? And they said, okay, you ask their name, you ask why they're here, and then we will help you talk them into the light. And that's really, honey, that's what we did for the next 30 years was first we'd walk in, we'd find them. Oh, there they are. Walk over. Hi, what's your name? Dennis. Dennis, why are you here? I don't want to go to the other side because my ex-wife is there and I hate that BITCH. Oh, okay. And then we would ask our guides and they'd say, reassure Dennis he does not have to run into his ex-wife. Heaven is a really big place. And that when he goes over and goes into the light, just tell the greeters, I don't want to see my ex-wife. And I said, and so, okay. I mean, I'm making it sound like this happened really quickly. No, it was a long conversation. And then we would just, okay, Dennis, you see that tunnel? Okay, just float towards that tunnel. And do you see that light in there? Yeah. Okay, well, we want you to go towards that light. And they would go, and I swear to God, every one of them, just before they go into the light, they turn around and look at us like, do I really have to go? And it's like, you're setting yourself free by going into the light. You're going to love it into the light. And
sometimes you said it would take hours to
yes,
convince them to go over, and you'd have to have
yes,
conversations with them. And I remember you were talking about a guy that was adamant about not going, or a ghost, I should say, and he didn't change his mind until his dog Copper come back
yes,
through the tunnel, and then he went, and you told him, look, you can't go over unless
I know.
go with Copper, unless unless you go in the tunnel as well. Got to go in the light.
That's right, honey. Yeah, my brother's guide, because we were stuck. This guy, he did not want to leave. And I said to my brother, what are we going to do? And he said, I have an idea. And in came Copper, the guy's dog, and the guy got down on the ground and started, hugging his dog. And he was so happy. And then, we said, well, Copper lives on the other side. And so if you want to be with Copper, you need to go. And he did. He went. Yeah.
So
Yeah.
in terms of, so I was thinking about you actually a couple of weeks ago. So I had come across like an online documentary about some really old haunted places in England, such as a place like Chillingham Castle, where apparently there's meant to be 500 ghosts. It's actually a real forlorn, awful place where there was meant to be this guy called John Sage, who was like the ultimate executioner and maybe executed more than 1,000 Scottish soldiers. So this was back in the 1100s. And this castle is just supposedly littered with ghosts. And so I say to you, you know, how would you ever ghostbust a place like that? I mean, 500 ghosts, I mean, that's a number. I mean, that could be obviously very superfluous,
Yeah.
but how would you even deal with a place that have really ancient ghosts back from the 1100s and someone like
Oh,
John,
honey,
who's an
that's
ex,
crazy.
how would you do that?
You know what I would do, honey? I would go into that place and just and that's what we've learned to do when we walk into a house that's full. We just ask, okay, who's in charge here?
Oh,
Because there's usually one ghost that plays the powerful role. And we talk to that ghost and say, look, you're the one with all the power. You're the one that they all listen to. You've been stuck since the 1100s. This is crazy. And you guys need to go to the other side. No, we don't. Yes, you do. Why stay stuck? I mean, come on. And so that's why it takes so long with some of these, honey. And but you know what? We don't leave until they go on. And so that's why it can seem like forever with some of these. So then when when the leader starts to listen to us, like really listen, like say to him, you'd be doing a tremendous service by taking these folks over to the other light, to the other side. And, all their loved ones, well, by now their loved ones have probably reincarnated 5 times, but, would just say, your loved ones are waiting for them. And so then we've learned to say, okay, just everybody hold hands. Okay. We want you to all hold hands and you're going to get free today. You're going to get unstuck. You can go on with your lives. You do not have to be a soldier anymore. And then we just ask the leader, okay, you start the whole thing. You take them. And so usually they're holding somebody's hand. And that's what they do. They go over. Now, God, honey, we've never had to do something like that. I can't even imagine. I did a high school here in the Twin Cities that had 35 young souls, kids that had died, and then they hang out at this school. When I saw, okay, so I saw the kid and I said, how many of there are you? He said, 35. And I said, would you round everybody up and bring them to the auditorium so I can talk to everybody? And then I said to him, his name was Raymond, and I said, would you lead them to the other side? And he did. So, but that's the biggest amount I've ever had to
wow.
work with, I guess.
And did you
35.
see, like, could you see all of these souls, like,
Yeah,
just,
I saw them all on the stage in the auditorium, all these young kids. And you know what, honey? When I asked them, why do you stay here? Why don't you go to the other side? The standard answer for teenage ghosts is heaven's going to be really boring. No more parties. We don't get to have fun. We have to go to heaven and get our wings and play harps. Okay. This is what they think heaven is going to be. And so when we talk to them and say, oh my God, come on, there's as many parties in heaven as there are here. Really? Are you trying to trick us? No, we're not trying to trick you. Just trying to set you free. And we even say to them, go over, spend a few days. If you don't like it, you can always come back. Oh, okay. So they go.
there they go.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because I mean, and it would be so physically and emotionally taxing on you to
Yes.
garner your energy. I mean, you would come home absolutely shattered, wouldn't you?
Honey, we're pretty tired after these. We always, if people gave us money, because we didn't charge, it was more like a donation. So if people gave us money, the first thing we do is drive to some fast food joint where we could just drive in and get like burgers, and just fill our energy back up.
So,
Yeah, we would be exhausted. Yeah.
with those ancient places, with any places when there's a lot of ghosts, it's a lot
Yeah.
of, and I heard another place in England, they call it the Ancient Ram's Inn, which is also dated back to the 1100s. And apparently, this place is so demonic and evil that when a priest went there, because it was built on an ancient pagan burial site
Oh, okay.
where sacrificial rituals were done. And a priest went in there to try and exorcise the place, to do
Yeah.
an exorcism. And apparently he came out crawling on his hands and knees, absolutely defeated by this energy. And I just think, oh my God, what kind of energies are in there? Are they all human, or are there creatures that dwell in other layers of dimensions? Is there any insight you can give into, other entities, or is it purely just
Oh,
souls?
God. Oh, honey, that's a good question. I thankfully have never been in a place like that. Oh my God. And I wouldn't even attempt it. I mean, blech,
Yeah,
ick, you know?
it's
I mean, there are psychics that love all that demonology stuff, and so they can go in and clear up the ghosts, but I sure as heck wouldn't even bother. So what do I think it could be? Honey, all I can think is maybe it's just a lot of souls and the place attracts souls who believe in demonology really big time. And they think it's really cool to think like that. And God, like attracts like. So that's all I can think is that they're just attracting everything they want, all the negativity they want. Oh, what a mess. What a
that's
mess.
right. And I think people are very quick to hand over their power, you know,
Yes.
and attract that into their life so they can actually create these thought forms and these entities. So,
Yes.
and really build on that energy and frighten themselves. A lot of people are frightened of death, of crossing over, because
Yes.
they think they're
Yes.
going to go to a burning hell and there's going to be demons there, but it's actually creations within your own mind.
Yep.
And that's how powerful we are. God
Yep.
honors the thoughts and the ideas that we have by bringing
Yes.
them into manifestation if we believe in them enough.
I know, honey. Exactly. Exactly. So again, like attracts like. And so, all these negative spirits, or, the thought comes to me too, some of these um, ghosts that are really wimpy, maybe they go there just to feel more powerful. Could, you know,
So
yuck.
yeah, it would
Yuck.
be. I mean, so that's the kind of, I guess it comes with the territory. You can either venture into all that kind of, you know,
Yes. Yes.
and clairvoyance, or you can focus on the good and the light and the power in that, and helping souls that actually do
Yes.
want to cross over, and giving them strength that, look, going to the light is a service to yourself, to your soul. It's going to be amazing over there. Because, like you say, a lot of souls, a lot of ghosts are just frightened of crossing
No,
over.
I know, honey. I know. That's what my latest book is called. How to Live a Happily Ever After Life. And it's the 6 main reasons that we've heard from these ghosts. We always ask them why they're here. And it's the 6 main reasons why they stay. And it makes it a lot more human. Like, oh, these are human beings. Oh, because a lot of people don't know that, just like we didn't know that. So,
Yeah.
and the number one reason, honey, why these souls stay here, the number one reason that we have heard, I can't even tell you how many times, is they're afraid if they go to heaven that God will send them to hell. And these ghosts actually think that, well, if I hang out in this person's shower, God won't be able to find me. Okay. They actually believe that they're hiding from God and that God has no idea where they are. So that's why they stay here.
I thought if we could maybe discuss going into healing, and how, because I know you had actually a really interesting experience that a family contacted you with a boy that had fallen off. I think he'd fallen off a ladder, or he'd fallen from,
Yes.
and
Yes.
he was like pretty much,
Yes.
and the family had contacted you to help with his recovery.
Honey, you brought up that's a great story with the young boy.
Mm-hmm.
And okay, so let me before I tell you the cool story.
Background and
Yeah, I want to, because it's really cool how the universe pulled this all together. Okay, so at the time that all this was happening with my career, I was a barber downtown Minneapolis. And I did all my psychic work and healing work at night and on the weekends. Okay. So the guy who owned the barbershop, he said, okay, you're all going to have to find a place to work out of for the next 6 weeks, because I'm going to remodel the barbershop. Oh, well, the way it works is whenever something like that happens, you just call the barber school and then they find you a temporary place. So I called them and they got me a temporary job, and it was over at the University of Minnesota barbershop. And okay, so I started that job, and a friend of mine, it was on a Sunday, a friend of mine called, and she said that her stepson had fallen 18 feet and landed on his head, and he was in a coma, and he was in Nebraska, and they were flying him up to the University of Minnesota hospital. Well, that hospital just happened to be one half of a block from the barbershop where I was. And so I went to the hospital that night, and I walked in, and the nurse was telling the family, chances of him ever coming out of this coma are zip. You might as well just put him in a nursing home now. If he ever regains consciousness, he won't be able to feed himself, walk, talk, because there's so much damage to his brain. Okay. And so I looked at the mom and I said, I'll be right back. And I walked down the hall of the hospital, and I said out loud, but very quietly to myself, I said, God, did you hear what that nurse just said? And a voice said to me, well, are you going to listen to the fears of the world, or are you going to get to work? And I said, okay, I'll get to work. And so I went back and I started channeling healing to him that night. Well, because I only worked a half a block from the hospital, I was able to go over there every day on my lunch break and channel healing to him. And then I would go back after work and channel some more. Well, that next day, God, that changed my life too. I was in his hospital room. Now he's in a coma. I don't even really know what he looks like because his face is so swollen. And I'm channeling healing to him. I've got one hand on his head, one hand on his chest. And from behind me, I hear this voice say, would you please heal the speech part of my brain? I'd like to talk again. And I thought, there's nobody in this room but me and him. What was that? And I turned around and I looked. Honey, standing there up against a wall in a t-shirt and blue jeans is this kid. But I can see through him just like I could with the ghosts. And so I said, who are you? And he said, I'm the soul that lives in that body. And I really want to talk again. So would you please heal the speech part of my brain? And I said, I don't really know where that is. I see his soul. His soul goes into his body. His hand comes up like this and drops down right there. Right then, that nurse comes in the room and says, why did you put his hand there? And I said, I didn't put his hand there. He says, well, how did his hand get there? I said, well, like, how do you explain this? So I just, well, it just came up and landed right there. And so the nurse looked at me like I was some crackpot. And I said to him, where's the speech part of his brain? And he said, it's right where his hand is. I said, okay, thank you. And I didn't, that was it. That's all we said. And so I went up there every day, and every day his soul, I would come in the room and I would say, hi, Dale, it's Echo. I'm here. And either his soul would come into the room, or his soul would come up out of his body. And he told me that he tried to stay out of his body as much as possible, because when the soul was out of the body didn't feel pain. Okay. Wow. Okay. And so every day he would let me know. He would say, Echo, I have a really bad headache today. Will you please work on my neck? Okay. And then when I would work on him, usually his soul would just leave. And you can tell, I learned how to tell the difference, because when the body is just laying there and it's completely still, the soul was out. And when his soul came in, his body there would be movement, and he would have regular breathing. When the soul was out, you could barely tell that he was breathing because it was so shallow. And then soul comes in, and you could see it was like the body became energized again. And so that's what we did, honey, for 6 weeks. Saw him come out of the body, go back in the body, tell me what he needed. And then at a certain point, the barbershop was ready, and it was time for me to go back to work. My guides said, don't worry, he'll be fine. And I went back to work, and it was about 2 weeks later, because he needed 2 weeks of therapy to learn how to walk again. But honey, he left the hospital walking and talking on his own and feeding himself, and went back to life.
Yeah.
So, but that was a turning point for me, because I learned so much about the soul. And so after that experience, then when somebody would come for healing, I would just silently say, soul, can you communicate to me? Can you tell me what you need here? And I wouldn't say it out loud, but the person would be laying on my healing table, and I would be having a conversation, and their soul oftentimes would come up out of the body and tell me what the body needed. Sometimes the soul would just come out as soon as the person laid on the table, and the body falls asleep, and off they go. And then they would maybe come back in just like a minute before the healing was over. Yeah. And the other thing that I learned was that clients that had cancer, they would say, could you communicate with my soul or my subconscious mind and ask if I'm going to live or die? And so I would ask, the soul would come out, I would ask, and the soul would tell me, yes, I'm going to. And it was interesting because the soul calls it graduation. So the soul would say, yeah, I'm going to graduate in April, but please don't tell my conscious mind, because she's just going to get depressed, and I have things I want to get done. And so every time, there was only one time that a friend of mine who had cancer, he asked me, he said, well, do you think I'm going to, because he had survived it once, and then he was back a second time. And so he said, do you think I'm going to beat this again? And he said, ask my soul. So his soul came out of the body, and he said to me, no, I'm graduating in 2 weeks. And I thought, oh God, I can't tell him.
Tell someone that.
And honey, his soul said, go ahead and tell him, because he might as well be ready. And I thought, oh boy. So afterwards, he said, well, did you get any information? And I said, well, it was a little sketchy. I was trying to find a way around it. And finally, I just said, okay, all right. Yeah, no, you're not. This is your exit point. And when? And I said, well, your soul said 2 weeks. And he got really mad at me, told me to leave. and didn't talk to me anymore. And he died 2 weeks later. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Because
So,
I mean, and that's the thing. Like when obviously you've done, psychic readings for many years. I don't think you're doing them anymore now. Is that right? You're
oh,
not no
I'm
longer.
so I'm so fried on it, honey.
Yeah,
Honestly,
and it
I'm
is.
just
It's
fried.
very taxing, and I
Yeah.
think this is the thing that for people that need that guidance, um, when they hear information that they don't want to hear,
Yeah.
they get angry about it
I
because
know.
a lot of people want to hear the sugar-coated stuff. I, I say to other people that have psychic readings, be careful what you wish for
I
because
know. I know. I know.
you may hear things that you don't really want to hear.
I know, honey. I'm really glad you brought up that point because we aren't we we don't do this just to make somebody's day.
That's right.
That's not what this is about at all. We bring through information that they ask for,
Yeah.
and people need to learn about that. About a month ago, I got asked by a production company. It's called Bold Brave TV Productions. They asked me if I would be interested in hosting my own TV show online, and we talked about it, and I am going to do it, and it's for this very reason that we're talking about, honey. I want to set this all straight with people. I want people to really, we are not entertainment monkeys.
That's
That
right.
is not our job. Our job is to bring through information that people ask us for. And I just, you know what? I want to bring as much integrity to it as possible and introduce people to good psychics, and even just talk about simple things like what is psychic abilities, because a lot of people don't know. And like the questions that you've asked, honey, they're such good questions. Talk to us about ghosts. What are they? Talk about healing. What is it? I mean, you've asked really important questions versus other people who just want to make fun of it. And
And it's
you know
important
what?
though in this day and age because the world, what I feel, clairvoyantly, is the world is going through a shift, and
Yes. Yes.
these are foundational. These are foundational objectives. I feel we come in as souls to help raise each other, and it doesn't mean you have to do, like get your robe out and, do massive healings, but it could
Yeah.
simply be planting a tree, helping Mother Earth. It could
Yeah.
be spending 10 minutes with someone that's had a really bad day and
Yes.
giving them your time. That is a service that you are giving, and
Yep.
and this is what it's all about is,
Yes.
and this kind of leads me into my next question for you, is that how can people live more authentic lives, and with now the introduction of the digital age and technology, how can people just create um that separation from technology and get back to themselves and the natural way of living? And
Oh boy.
yeah, because I feel like the digital age has really clouded people's ability to tap into their intuition
Yep.
and their psychic ability. Do you want to
Yeah, honey.
talk a little bit about that?
Oh gosh, I think it is so important for people to live intuitively. Oh, I just,
Because you would see people on their phones all the time. Do you see people how they're just
yeah,
constantly
yeah,
just
yes,
completely
yes,
attached? And I just think, wow, you're missing.
I know.
Not that I'm judging people, but I just think this life is all around us, and people are finding that entertainment and attention just from this little device that is just
I
very
know, honey.
overbearing and very,
Yeah,
it detracts people from the bigger picture of,
it
you
does. It
living.
does. Honey, one thing I've found is because I was talking, I teach right now, I have 4 different classes on Zoom during the week. And we were talking about this the other night that I yeah, I think somebody asked me a question like, oh, I can't even remember how we got started on it, but what I have found is usually people start to explore their spirituality when they lose somebody, when someone dies that they love. That's when they start to seek us out, the mediums and psychics and the healers. Because suddenly now they want to know, hey, wait a minute, what goes on after somebody dies? What? And that's when people get on a spiritual path, which is really unfortunate that we don't wake up someday and just say, I'd like to get on a spiritual path. It's like it takes some kind of a crisis for people to turn to us, to turn to spirituality, to turn to their intuition, to find out what intuition is. I,
People shouldn't leave it until, people shouldn't leave it so long until something drastic happens. Like,
I agree, honey.
That have had, sometimes spirit has to get their attention by having them in an accident.
Yep.
Something traumatic happens. They have an NDE, like a near-death experience, and then they come back and completely change their lives because they realize the higher purpose of why they came to Earth. But it shouldn't have to come to someone having an NDE to make that realization.
Honey, I know. It's really unfortunate that us humans are so stubborn that it has to take a crisis to shake us and get us on a different path, a new path, start asking questions. But that's how we are. We just are. We're so used to our routines. We don't want our routines changed. We just want to keep relying on our mind and, what do I need my intuition for? I've got this great mind. It's like, oh my God, if you only knew.
Yeah.
So it does seem to take a crisis, which is really unfortunate. Now, on the other hand, I can say, and I'm sure you know too, I mean, think about, there are a lot of people on this path now, more than ever before, honey, which is really good. I mean, thank goodness there are a lot of people on this path because I can't imagine living life and not being on this path, this spiritual path.
That's right.
I love it. I love living intuitively. There's this book, honey. Have you read any of Gina Lake's books?
No.
Oh my God. Okay. So, let me see here. There's one. Oh, yeah. What Jesus wants you to know today about himself, Christianity, God, the world, and being human. This book is the absolute best book. Wow. Oh my God, honey. Oh my God, he's so cool. And she channels, this lady named Gina Lake channels him. And she's got so many books. But he's got a sense of humor. He talks about his life. He talks about us. Wow. And, he'll say things like, don't worry about that. That's not important. Focus on this. And I wish the whole world would read this because he keeps it really simple, tries to get us back to just the basics of life, the golden rule even. Holy smokes. Think how cool it would be if people lived by the golden rule.
Yeah. And that's we're so hard on ourselves. Like, we're so hard as humans that we have to be a certain way or we have to do certain things. Yes. And the best thing we could actually do for ourselves is to let go of that resistance and just surrender to spirit.
Yep.
You're more likely to, work out what it is that you want to do in your life instead of living in your mind and coming down towards your heart space.
Yep.
And listening to, kind of what you should be doing for yourself. And that's usually slowing down and reconnecting with what makes you truly happy in this life. A lot of people are lost, Echo. A lot of people are walking around in circles because they cannot work out what fulfills them anymore.
I know, honey. I know. So many people are so unhappy. I know. Yeah. And you just hit it on the nail, honey. I think it was at the beginning of this year. I was doing a meditation and Jesus showed up and said, okay, folks, it's time to stop living up here. Get down to your heart. Come on. Time to live from your heart. Yeah. And wow, what a difference it would all make if we did that.
And just the power of prayer, the power, people don't realize their direct connection to source and how powerful prayer is. Everything is heard. As soon as you go into the moment of prayer, you only have to speak it. You don't have to speak certain words, but as soon as you speak it, you have that direct connection with source and they are listening.
That's right.
You and people forget that they have that power.
I know, honey. Yeah, I know. That's one thing in that book. He really pushes that come on, you can talk to God. You can talk. And then be sure to give time to listen, you know. And he talks a lot about get into your intuition. It's a voice of God, and learn to trust it.
Everybody has it.
I know, honey. I know.
So,
but we have so many different levels of souls here on earth. And I think it's the younger souls, the souls that have come in. You know, what I'm learning about lately is souls coming in from other planets to have the human experience. And they don't really, those are the kids that I see in the gangs, you know, killing each other, have no respect for animals or people. And
because you mentioned there were like 4 levels of soul, and I know that you mentioned that you have spoken to people that have come from the planet Ura. Is that right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
And
God, girl, you know me better than I know me, for God's sakes.
Spirit's just bringing it to me as it's happening.
Yeah.
I'm paying attention.
Yeah, honey, there was a young man that his guidance counselor called me and asked me if I would meet with him because she said there's just something different about him. And the whole reading turned out these beings, they said they were from the planet Ura outside of our solar system, and they gave him information for at least an hour. And so they were saying all these things, and I remember just being, oh my God, I can't wait to tell my mom that. Oh my God, all this information. And then at the very end of his reading, the man that said that he was his father said that I would remember very little about the reading. And I thought to myself, you're crazy, buddy. I'm going to remember all of this. And by the time I got to my mom's house, honey, I remembered maybe 5 sentences. Oh my God. So yeah.
So you're saying that he had come in at a certain level soul, because I know you mentioned that I think you said there were 4 levels of soul, and the younger ones coming in are really picking hard lives to shift into, like you say, with gangs, murders, you know, really hard, grimy stuff that's hard for humans to deal with. Is that right?
Yeah, honey, it's like they don't have a consciousness yet, and of being human. They don't have that consciousness. And so to say to them, you know, it's not right to kill people, they're like, yeah, whatever. You know, they don't, why? Who cares? And so it's really about, or at least what I've learned with the different levels is the higher our consciousness grows, the higher we become, you know, we go up the scale as far as levels. And, you know, I should change all that, because, I mean, I should change the part about, well, let me say this, that when we finish level 4, then we move on to level 5. And level 5 souls, they're like earth angels, honey. They can come to earth. They don't have any karma. They come here to help us. They come here to be an example of how high we can get spiritually, how in tune we can become with everything. They're just examples of our oneness with each other. And, you know, not all of us get to meet an earth angel sometime in our life, and some people do. And oh my gosh, this friend of mine, Bobby, the one I do podcasts with, he's got an aura camera. And there was a lady that came into one of our events one day, and he took her picture, and honey, her wings showed up in the
Wow.
aura photo. We were all just blown away. And so I said to her, oh my God, you're an angel. You're an earth angel. And she said, oh, everybody says that about me. I mean, she was so sweet and so humble, and is like, oh, she just thought that was so silly. And but I mean, you could see her wings were right in the picture.
Wow.
So
But
yeah,
also coming down to be of service,
yes,
help humanity.
yes,
And,
yes.
yeah.
And they're very sweet. They're just sweet,
And I think
and
like the earth is like a mishmash now of all different types of souls, the old
oh
souls
man.
coming in and helping the younger souls. And
Yes.
so yeah, like I mean to see wings on an auric camera. Did she
No,
actually did she have that intuition that she actually was an old soul? Did she
you know
know?
what? She acted like, oh, it doesn't matter. Like that. It's just, oh, like, oh, you kids are so cute, like that. And we said, well, have people told you this before? Everybody tells me that. That was her answer. So it was like, oh my God, you're so sweet. And we said, can we have a copy of your oh sure. She was just so obliging. And Bobby has the picture. It's really cool.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
So I thought, because we have about 10 minutes left again, Echo, I
Yeah.
thought if we like, if there's some parting advice you would like to give people on the planet, we can kind of finish up with that. It's so comforting for people to talk about this,
Yeah. I
in
know.
this day and age, and to
Yes.
realize that everybody has the capability of intuition. Everybody
Yeah.
has that divine imprint of God within them, and
Yes.
and to recognize that and to nurture that. And I think
Yes.
the more talk
Oh,
about it, it just
yes.
people and makes them feel okay about life, and it's okay to slow down. It's
Yeah.
okay to not know what you want to do, but just know that there's higher portions of yourself that actually do know what the grand plan is. Because a lot of people don't know that they actually come in choosing their life, choosing their parents, and what happens to them is actually for them. It's
Yes.
actually for them. So it takes
Yeah.
away the victimhood that a lot of people feel in their lives, and it shifts the attention that no, I actually chose this. This is for my own growth and my own learning. It
Yeah.
really changes perspective. And so I think a lot of, talking about this helps people realize, and it gives them a different perspective of how they view
I
their
agree.
lives.
Honey, I agree. And here we are. We're two normal people that have abilities. And we're not freaky. We're not wearing robes with a turban on our head. We don't have a owl sitting on our shoulder. We're normal people. And that's what we that's what we need to get across to people is um, just even to explain to people what these gifts are, to explain to people what intuition is. They just, I don't know. I think conversations like this is so important for people, just so
Inherent within
important.
all of us. It really is inherent within every single one of us. And,
Yes, it is. Yes,
you
it
know,
is. Yeah.
so
And now I have a buddy in South Australia. How cool is that? How
yeah.
cool is
Oh
that?
my gosh. I just feel so lucky. I feel so blessed because I'd said to Spirit, I thought, oh, I'm a little bit nervous reaching out to Echo because I thought you're so busy and you do so much. And I thought, well, I'll just trust my intuition with this and I'll send her an email. And I really wasn't expecting to hear back from you. So when I heard back, I almost fell off my chair. So I'm like, oh my God, thank you so much. This is so amazing. So, yeah, it's been an absolute honor and privilege. And so, if you have any parting words for people listening to this today to share, is there anything that Spirit is guiding you to share with us today, or any parting words of wisdom that you'd like to?
You know, I, honey, I guess what I'd like to say to people is Don't wait until there's a crisis in your life or a death in your family, someone you love dearly. Don't wait until then to get on your spiritual path. Get on it now and start paying attention to that still small voice inside.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of us, it's people, okay, it's that knowing. That's one thing I've found is when a woman is talking about her intuition, she'll say, I just know this is what I need to do. She uses the word knowing. And that's how people can tell, because students say to me, well, how do I know if it's my own thought or it's my intuition? And I'll say, listen to how you're talking about it. If you say, well, I think this is what we should do, that's your thinking. If you say, I don't know how I know this, I just know this is what we should do, that is your intuition. Men say, I don't know, my gut just says this is what we should do. Okay. So we have the language for it, but a lot of times people don't even stop and think about what they just said. They don't realize that they just said, well, I just know this is what we should do.
Yeah.
And the thing about intuition that is so cool is that it's subtle. Well, that part is not so cool. I wish it was more like James Earl Jones speaking to us from within, because boy, we would have no doubt where that came from. The thing with intuition is it's subtle, it's silent, but it has a certain energy to it. And when we just have this knowing about something, that is what intuition is. And that's what people need to pay attention to. But the other thing that's really important is that we get out of our head. We stop all this chatter and ask our intuition, ask God, ask the creator, whatever you want to call the creator. If you want to call him Ralph, great, call him Ralph. It doesn't matter. What you want to focus on is, and for me, it's God. I mean, I keep it really simple. And I just say, God, I need your guidance with this. And don't just sit there waiting for the answer to come, because usually we put the question out and then sometime during the day we get this inspiration, we get this knowing. It doesn't come up here in our head. Well, sometimes it does. Oh God, now I'm going to confuse people. But there's a knowing with it. Yes. That, oh, wow. And it's subtle and it's soft and it's kind and it's loving and it's sweet and it never lies to you. And one thing that's really important for people to know is that intuition is not emotional. Okay. Because the reason it's so important is because a lot of our emotions are down in here. So we feel guilt, we feel shame, we feel fear, we feel a lot of things. And those feelings are in our body. Oh, all I have to say is just listen, just pay attention and listen.
Okay. Okay.
Okay.
All right. Well, we'll say thank you to you now. And I just want to say thank you so much for your time, Echo. It's been an absolute honor and a blessing. And I hope we can do this again sometime soon. And
me too. Me too.
If people have questions to ask Echo, or any requests for advice on something, maybe we could do something.
Yeah, honey. Yeah, they could send you their questions, and you and I could do this again. That's a great idea.
That would be fantastic. And I want to say thank you so much for doing this. It's an absolute honor and a blessing to have you today.
Thank you, darling. Thank you.
I don't know anybody like you. Like you truly are. You are an earth angel. You are an earth angel. And you've come and have given us so much service, so much love, so much wisdom. I mean, and you've learned this on your own. Like you didn't have any support program behind you like we have now. So, I mean, I'm actually in debt to you. It's an incredible gift, and I want to say thank you for sharing it with us.
Well, honey, thank you for reaching out to me. I mean, we wouldn't be here if you hadn't done that. So thank you. Thank you.
Okay.
And I look forward to our next meeting.
Me too. Me too.